Good day and welcome, America and beyond. I'm Tom Donahue for Tom Donahue Reports and the Briefing. Well, Trump is in the Middle East and wreaking havoc in some ways. But what is it about this obsession with opulence? That's really what it is. And I haven't heard it coined that way. It just came to me. But the obsession with opulence. Now, Jimmy Carter made a lot of mistakes. And he's not considered a great president, but maybe a great person. But there are some character flaws there relating to his associations with David Rockefeller and Kissinger, among others. But that's not the point today. The point is that he lived a very simple life for the most part. Yes, I mean, he strived for the ultimate in political power, and he was coached and pushed along. But even his stay in the White House, and then certainly afterwards, he lived a very simple, very humble life and very Christian-like walk in many ways. And here's Trump worrying about the size of this and how shiny this new object is, and this isn't good enough, and this has to be replaced. He's doing that at the White House. Now, does he realize that, I think he's 79, right? I mean, he's either going on 79 or 80, but anyway, so he's around the 80 mark, okay? And even though his diet is crap, quite pathetic overall, somehow, some way, he's still chugging along. So you got to give him credit for having so much energy, and he's always striving to do something, whether it's in business or politics or social media, crypto coins. The point I'm trying to make here is that Trump's obsession with opulence is a problem. If Biden was accepting gifts from Middle Eastern countries, you can say, well, it's going to be for White House use, and it's not just this president, but other presidents. Well, Ted Cruz and other politicians have voiced their concerns. Oh, and two of them, which I'm not sure to what extent they shared these concerns, but the two things that came to mind for me is, one, what if the jet is bugged, or has even something microscopic that somehow is still able to pick up everything? But princes and potentates and dictators and tyrants, Trump's okay with that. And he's talking about how beautiful the palaces are, and the pomp and the ceremony, and we're getting a military parade soon. Crazy. Taking examples from Putin or China or other countries or other leaders, to me, is just insane. Why not just follow the Constitution, follow the American way, execute very conscientious and very conservative and very America first stride? Now, some of his activities and his interventionist impulses, which kind of surprised me in the second term, it's not America first. I mean, we should not just have blanket trade deals and just, go off the rails, and I've already talked about that, but targeted, specific, strategic, maybe looking at the ones that were most problematic and do it more incrementally. But intervening in, Gaza and wanting to take that over, he wants to take over Greenland, he wants to, they say he's not really quite joking about Canada. Well, good luck for a conservative ever getting elected again if we did bring in Canada, but that's another story for another day. This is not America First policy. This would not be like a Ron Paul. To me, he is sacrificing America First at the altar of internationalism. And you can say, well, he's doing it for the betterment of America. No, he's doing it for the betterment of the Trump family, the Trump organization and company, his wealthy donors. And the fact is, he wants to be in the power position. And to me, this is very troubling. I'm quite disturbed with his antics now, sadly, his menacing ways. And then if you think of this Qatar $400 million jet, who knows what's under the table deals, okay? I mean, that one, you can't hide that one. Let me see if I can find the article. I post a lot of these news headlines, these stories at TalkStream Live and TalkRight, so TalkStreamLive.com. And then, of course, I've got that widget that connects from my website, TomDonahueReports.com. And I know K-Star, Talk Radio, and there's some other affiliates, if you will, that are also taking advantage of the research I do and putting together the news headlines on a daily basis. Okay, now there were some conservatives that finally have spoken up and spoken out. And one of them happens to be Mark Levin. And the article was printed in Mediaite. It says, Mark Levin fumes over Trump's chummy tour of the Arab world, citing 9/11 These are terrorists. He's exactly right. Where do you think the hijackers came from? The majority of them were from Saudi Arabia. Okay? Trump, beyond golf courses and Trump building enterprises, he's been very friendly. And when people bring up 9/11 and getting to the bottom of that and the Saudi involvement, he says, well, I just don't know enough about that. Wait a minute, we're releasing all these other files. Why shouldn't we know, or why wouldn't you want to know more about 9/11? So there was an article that talked about, it was the comparison to the Biden crime family. Well, before I do find that, Trump said in 2017, he called Qatar's funders of terrorism, and this resurfaced with the jet gift Fury, and this was published by Newsweek. So here's the article that I was wanting to point out, and this was also published in Mediaite. It says, press bludgeons Trump over disgraceful Qatar plane gift, making Hunter Biden look like small potatoes. Now, if you talk about the Biden crime family, and truly they were and continue to be, then now we have to start talking about the Trump crime family, because these deals that not only he but his sons are involved with, and his associates and his donors, we just have no idea. And then how about the crypto coins? And there's just a lot of deal making. And you say, well, he's the art of the deal. We didn't write the book, but it was ghostwritten, but he contributed to it, okay? But nevertheless, he does like to make deals, and sometimes the United States of America benefits, but where's the constitutional framework? And where's America's interest in these things? And are there any Americans saying we need a bigger Air Force One? You can imagine if Biden was trashing Air Force One, or Obama, and said, we're going to go hat in hand, or we're going to look for a generous foreign donor. Really? And, so I'm glad that at least a handful, and it's only a handful of conservatives that are critiquing this in the media and beyond. Laura Loomer, who very chummy with Trump, this is what she had to say. She slams Trump over this controversy and calls it a stain on his presidency, and she's so disappointed. So we got Mark Levin, Laura Loomer. We do have Senator Rand Paul. We do have Senator Ted Cruz. Now, remember when I talked about the potential of it being bugged? Well, here's a quote from Senator Ted Cruz. He said that the gift of the Qatar jet to Trump poses significant espionage concerns. So, hey, I'm not very far off. I mean, he's the United States Senator. He sees all these intelligence reports, and he's been very much in lockstep with Trump after the 2016 elections. So this is not like, this is people that are within his camp, okay? Now, the co-host on Fox's the Gutfeld show, she went off on Greg Gutfeld, and she said, Trump is worse than the Biden crime family. Going back to that, I used to also talk about the Bush crime family too, both Bushes. This is all about deal making. And, if it's America first, if he's cutting a trade deal, that's different than trying to reap the bounty of these Middle Eastern terrorists, these autocrats and dictators and tyrants. But if someone compliments Trump, or they roll out the red carpet, and they did, and he was so impressed with, all the pomp and ceremony, and he's worried about, well, look, they got bigger planes than we do. For God's sake, is this guy, is Trump like a 7-year-old rather than 70-something? His interest and fixations on the most petty and the most pathetic and the most ridiculous and the most useless of things. But man, I'll tell you, this is Trump's world, and we just happen to live in it. Thanks for listening to Tom Donahue Reports. That's TomDonahueReports.com.